L24 Midnight News coming to you live from Algiers, and these are today's top stories. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights calls to save Palestinians from the Zionist daily raids, warning that the situation is getting worse and out of control in the West Bank. Former director of the Spanish intelligence and ambassador to Morocco, Jorge Di Caya, voiced strong criticism against Pedro Sanchez, Prime Minister of Spain, saying that the government's shift in position toward Western Sahara was a very serious mistake. On the first anniversary of Spanish Melilla enclave tragedy that left 23 migrants killed, human rights activists denounced the imposition of any punishment to this day. After French President Macron accused Russia of being a destabilizing force in Africa, Kremlin says Russia and country is developing good, constructive relations based on mutual respect with all countries. Hello again and welcome. Algeria condemned in the strongest terms the repeated barbaric attacks and acts of intimidation carried out by Zionist settlers under the protection of the occupation forces against the defenseless Palestinian citizens, which led to the fall of many innocent victims and the destruction of their property. Algeria renewed its call to the international community to fully assume its responsibilities in order to stop the dangerous and bloody violence and assault on the Palestinians and their property, reaffirming once again its full solidarity with the Palestinian people and its firm and supportive stance toward its in order to restore all its legitimate and inalienable rights, foremost of the establishment of its independent state with Al-Quds as a capital. In the same line of thought, the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has warned against the consequences of the deteriorating situation in the West Bank, stressing that it risks to spiral out of control. Mohammed Khatou.
The UN warnings come as a result of the deteriorating security situation in the occupied West Bank, fueled by an escalation in the use of advanced military weaponry by the Zionist occupation forces against defenseless Palestinian people. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights warns that the situation in the West Bank could get out of control.
This week's violence in the occupied West Bank risks spiraling out of control, fueled by strident political rhetoric and an escalation in the use of advanced military weaponry by Israel. This sharp deterioration is having a terrible impact in the occupied.
The situation in the West Bank is deteriorating drastically as the Zionist forces have killed at least 7 Palestinians, including children, in a refugee camp.
The Israeli forces conducted a series of airstrikes on Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank, in a major intensification of the use of weaponry more generally associated with the conduct of armed hostilities rather than a law enforcement operation. On Wednesday evening, there were further reports of an Israeli military drone strike near Jenin.
The statement of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights included criticism of the use of the arsenal of Zionist warplanes to launch hostilities against the residents of the Jenin camp, considering the move a major escalation. Despite the occupying authorities' persistence in violating international law, the UN body did not fail to urge it to adhere to international human rights charters and respect the rights of Palestinians.
Israel must urgently reset its policies and actions in the West Bank in line with international human rights standards, including protecting and respecting the right to life.
The warnings of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights against the deteriorating situation in the occupied West Bank reveal a small part of the crimes perpetrated by the Zionist entity, which persists in killing innocent Palestinians and trampling on their rights.
The Algerian Foreign Minister and the German Vice Chancellor and the Minister of Economy and Climate Protection, Robert Habeck, during their meeting Friday in Berlin, stressed the need to start preparing for the next session of the Joint Economic Committee between the two countries by organizing a meeting at the level of experts in Algeria next October to assess the progress made in achieving objectives of bilateral partnership at various levels. The talks focus on the Algerian-German economic partnership relations and the prospects available for strengthening them, especially in the context of new projects that the two sides aspire to embody in the field of renewable energies and green hydrogen. Same trip to our Algerian Foreign Minister, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, welcomed the signing of an agreement between Germany, Austria and Italy on the Southern Hydrogen Corridor project. Marab in this report.
Algeria keeps investing in the hydrogen industry, deepening cooperation with Berlin, as the country expressed readiness to participate in the South H2 hydrogen corridor agreed by Germany, Austria and Italy in May, in a historic project that is planned to connect the European continent with Africa, as described by the Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, who hailed the agreement.
We appreciate and welcome the signing of the agreement between Germany, Austria and Italy regarding the truly historic project, the gigantic project called South H2 Corridor. We appreciate and welcome the signing of the agreement between Germany, Austria and Italy regarding the truly historic project, the gigantic project called the South H2 Corridor.
As Germany is trying to find alternatives to Russian gas, Algeria, on the other hand, is seeking renewable energy investment and also to benefit from German experience. Berlin considers Algiers as a reliable energy alternative, as there is a possibility of switching from fossil energies to alternative renewable energies, particularly hydrogen.
Algeria is fully prepared to deal and to get strongly involved in this project in order to achieve it in cooperation with Germany and European partners, because it's in fact a project that can lead us to the desired goal, which is covering up 10% of Europe's renewable energies by 2050.
Given that Algeria was the first country to transport hydrogen via gas pipelines and that gas pipeline operators in Germany are pushing to hasten the review of the hydrogen law in order to address the energy crisis that the German economy is currently experiencing, Algiers and Berlin are currently in discussions regarding the development of hydrogen transportation.
The field of household appliances in Algeria is witnessing a qualitative leap through which companies have raised their integration rates by using local raw materials and human resources and know-how with the aim of covering the needs of domestic markets and exporting the surplus abroad. Algeria is seeking to raise its exports of household electrical products and electronic equipment as it is considered an important pole in this field.
We've been operating in European markets since 2007, notably in Spain, Portugal and Italy, and as I said before, we hope to penetrate the German market soon. The German government and authorities require that we have an after-sales service in the country. We are working on this with the Bank of Algeria. We hope to get the authorization and to establish an after-sales service in Germany in an easy way.
Out of Algeria to Mali now, where Malians approved changes in Sunday's constitutional referendum with 97% of the vote, while announcing the results in Bamako. Mustafa Sisi, head of the Electoral Commission, said that the turnout rate was at 39.4% of the country's 8.4 million registered voters. The Electoral Commission in Zimbabwe said that 11 candidates will run for the country's presidential elections slated for the next August, and confirmed that 11 of those who sought to run for the presidency were excluded from the next August 23rd elections. The election is expected to pit incumbent Emerson Mnangagwa of the ZANU-PF party against pastor and lawyer Nelson Chamisa of the Citizens of Coalition for Change, who is seen as the strongest challenger. Still in the African continent, fighting has renewed between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces after the end of the three-day truce, as the capital Al-Khartoum and other areas witness violent clashes between the two warring parties at a time when negotiations for truce have been postponed. Three boats and presumed to have been in the course to Italy sank off the coast of Tunisia, killing at least 3 people, while at least 12 migrants remain missing. The official spokesperson for the Court of Fourth Instance from the coastal town of Sfax reported 152 people, meanwhile, were rescued off the city of Sfax, a major port town in east-central Tunisia located on the northern shore of the Gulf of Gabas. In the first 4 months of the 2023, an estimated 40,000 people arrived in Italy through the central Mediterranean route, according to Italian government data. Spanish human rights organizations demand an independent investigation into the Melilla disaster, condemning attempts to close the case prematurely. Hussein Burkan in this report.
Tragic scenes unfolded at the border crossing between Morocco and the Spanish enclave of Melilla. Disparate immigrants faced a ruthless embrace, leaving behind torn scarves and shirts as chilling reminders. Despite widespread evidence captured by human rights platforms, no action has been taken against the culprits.
1 year after the Melilla massacre, Spanish and Moroccan authorities not only deny any responsibility, but also obstruct the search for truth. The Melilla tragedy should serve as a lesson. Otherwise, unjustifiable loss of life, violence, and impunity will persist on the border, as evidenced by the sinking of a boat off the Greek coast.
Driven by a sense of impunity, 5 Spanish human rights organizations filed a complaint last week, urging the judiciary to open an independent investigation and hold the culprits accountable. However, Moroccan and Spanish authorities rushed to prematurely close the case, concealing the facts of this crime that will continue to haunt Madrid and Rabat.
Despite widespread condemnations prompted by the actions of Moroccan and Spanish police, complete impunity prevails, setting a terrible precedent for Europe and Spain.
A year has passed since this crime, deemed the worst in the history of immigration. Human rights activists persistently urge authorities not to close the case without uncovering everyone involved in the Melilla tragedy. The quest for the truth and accountability remains as urgent as ever.
Still in Spain, a surprising turn of events. The Spanish government, led by Pedro Sánchez, has defaulted on its commitment to hand over the management of Sahrawi airspace to Morocco. The Spanish newspaper El Confidencial quoted unnamed diplomatic sources. The newspaper noted that this procedure was necessary because of the election results and the potential for a new government, as the diplomatic sources had already expressed concerns about the future of relations on both sides. This decision has dealt a significant blow to Morocco and sparked diplomatic tensions between the two countries, mentioned the same source. The former director of the CNI and former Spanish ambassador to Morocco between 1997 and 2001, Jorge de Caya, has criticized the return of the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's position on Western Sahara as a very serious mistake. The former Spanish diplomat has argued that this change in position brings hardly any benefits for Spain, pointing out that this has reduced exports with Algeria by 85% compared to last year.
Spain's exports to Algeria have decreased by 85% compared to last year. I was in Andalusia and I was told that nothing made in Spain is currently sold in Algeria. The government has put in place measures to support companies which are suffering the consequences of this. Nothing is sold in Algeria. What did we get in return? To conclude, I don't see the advantages that we got. Nobody can explain this to me, except that it's a very serious mistake.
A Moroccan was charged on Friday by German public prosecutors with spying for Moroccan intelligence on German-based members of significant Moroccan protest movements. The Moroccan Foreign Intelligence Service contacted the man in March 2020, according to the prosecution's statement. Based on the assignment, the man then provided his leaders with information about a large number of people, and the agency paid him for his travel expenses, which came to about 5,000 euros in exchange. The suspect was detained pending trial after being taken into custody by federal office in 2017. Around 40 heads of state and government from around the world agreed at summit for new global financial pact in Paris on the need to move towards a more equitable global financial system for poor countries, with the growing fears of the repercussions of climate change and debt burdens on poor countries. International demands are high that radical reforms must be introduced into the international financial architecture.
D'abord, il y a eu durant ce sommet des choses très concrètes qui ont été obtenues.
First, during this meeting, we achieved very concrete things. We finalized the long-awaited $100 billion climate finance pledged. We arrived at $100 billion for the redistribution of special drawing rights that was promised in 2021, and I congratulate all those who have finalized their agreements here.
EU High Representative Josep Borrell said on Thursday that leaders of Serbia and Kosovo had not made a breakthrough in emergency talks on the border tensions. The European Union's top diplomats said they agreed on a need for early elections amid fears of return to open conflict. Serbia and its former province of Kosovo have been at odds for decades. The 1998-1999 war left more than 10,000 people dead, mostly Kosovo Albanians. Belgrade has refused to recognize Kosovo's 2008 declaration of independence.
Yes, we are dealing with a crisis, and I thank to both of them for coming to Brussels and try to look for the escalation. We have called on Kosovo and Serbia many times to de-escalate tensions and to return to the process of normalization of relations. And the member states of the European Union have been very clear in calling for resolute steps, and so the United States has done also. Unfortunately, so far, all we have been witnessing is just the opposite.
I cannot say that we actually scheduled anything and cannot confirm that we have a sort of roadmap in front of us. The real issue is that it's always easy to rebook someone, either our side or the other side. But after all, it's not easy to find any solutions.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Russia is developing constructive relations with African states and they are in no way aimed at harming third world countries. This comes as a response to French President Emmanuel Macron, who said earlier that Russia was taking a path toward destabilizing Africa.
No, Russia is developing its good relations, constructive relations based on mutual respect, on mutual consideration of each other's concerns and problems, relations with all African countries. These relations are in no way directed and cannot be directed against third countries. We would not want these relations to become a matter of concern for anyone either.
Ukraine's armed forces have halted the Russian offensive toward the cities of Kupiansk and Liman in the east of the country and are advancing in the south, as a senior Ukrainian defense official told Ukrainian TV on Friday. Ukraine is in the early stages of its most ambitious counterattack since Russia's operation in February 2022, and it says has retaken 8 villages. It is the first substantial gains on the battlefield for 7 months.
We had very fierce battles in the Kupiansk and Liman directions, but our soldiers stopped the enemy there. Indeed, we still have the main events ahead of us, and the main blow is still to come. Indeed, some of the reserves, these are staged things, will be activated later. In the military, according to their reports and positions, everything is moving according to the plan. It is not necessary to expect the offensive to be something very fast. Every day we are advancing, every day. Yes, it is gradual, but our forces are gaining a foothold on these borders and they are advancing steadily.
The United States, alongside with its strongest Western allies, UK and France, have demanded the United Nations to conduct an urgent investigation into Russia's assumed use of Iranian drones in Ukraine, which would violate UN sanctions. Although Moscow repeatedly denied the claims, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield said that this month U.S. disclosed more material showing Iran's transfer of hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles to assist Russia's operation in Ukraine. In a different matter now, 5 people on board the tourist submarine that disappeared on an expedition to explore the Titanic shipwreck over the weekend did not survive, despite massive rescue efforts. Experts fear that the bodies of the victims may never be found after the missing vessel imploded in the Atlantic Ocean. Nabil Khazini.
The massive rescue effort for passengers on the missing Titan has failed, and Titan joined the Titanic in another tragedy, 111 years on and at the same place. All those on board have died. The question now is what caused the implosion. Titan's hull is believed to have collapsed as a result of enormous water pressure. This is understood as the sub was lost in an area of about 1,500 kilometers in the North Atlantic, in water with a depth of about 4 kilometers, which is about level with the depth of the Titanic wreck.
This submarine is not made of metal. Therefore, it's not ringing like a bell would if you hit it, whereas it's made of a composite, and that will be a bit like banging a log. I mean, you know, it'd be different, but it's a different sort of material. So it's not going to resonate like the steel would. And so I don't know, actually, but the fact they've heard it is encouraging.
This is not the first time something similar to this happens. In 2021, a tourist from Germany took a diving trip with a Titan submersible to see the wreck of the Titanic. His adventure, he says, was marked with several problems with the submarine at the time.
It was the last dive since 2021 that was possible. It was scheduled for 6 a.m. but was delayed for 4 hours because the batteries did not charge. When we finally were lowered into the water, there was a big bang and the stabilizer on the right-hand side of the submersible became loose. There are 2-meter-long pipes in different diameters, which were fitted subsequently to stabilize the submarine in the water. They became loose.
Investigations are underway into the loss of the Titan submersible. This might prevent other incidents as such to happen again. However, experts their bodies of Titan submersible victims may never be found.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us in this late hour. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say, at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.